Your 3-year-old is watching cartoons. They seem calm, entertained, maybe even learning colors or numbers. But what if I told you that what's happening inside their brain right now is setting the foundation for how they'll speak, behave, manage emotions, and understand reality for years to come? And what if the cartoons you think are harmless are actually creating a version of the world in your child's mind that doesn't exist? A world where problems are solved with magic, where consequences don't matter, where emotions are exaggerated, and where the pace of life moves faster than any human brain was designed to process. Before age 5, your child's brain is in the most critical period of development it will ever experience. The neural pathways being formed right now will shape how they think, how they relate to others, how they handle frustration, and how they see themselves in the world. And one of the most powerful influences on those pathways is not what you say to them, not what you teach them, but what they watch. Because young children don't watch screens the way adults do. They don't separate fiction from reality. They don't understand that what they're seeing isn't real. To them, it is real. And their brain is absorbing it, learning from it, building itself around it. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what's happening in your child's brain when they watch cartoons, why even so-called educational programs can have unintended consequences, and what you should let them watch instead if you want to raise a child who is grounded, emotionally regulated, and connected to the real world. This is not about shaming you. This is not about being a perfect parent. This is about understanding what science tells us about early childhood and making informed choices that protect your child's development. Let's start with what makes the brain before age 5 so vulnerable and so powerful at the same time. Between birth and age 5, the brain is forming over 1 million neural connections every single second. These connections are being shaped by every experience, every interaction, every sound, every image. The brain is not passively receiving information. It's actively building itself based on what it encounters. And here's the critical part. Young children do not yet have the cognitive ability to distinguish between what's real and what's pretend. That ability, called reality monitoring, doesn't fully develop until around age 6 or 7. Before that, if a child sees something on a screen, their brain processes it as if it's real. So when your toddler watches a cartoon where a character falls off a cliff and bounces back up, unharmed and laughing, their brain doesn't register that as fiction. It registers it as information about how the world works. When they watch characters solve problems with magic or talking animals or superpowers, their brain doesn't filter that out as fantasy. It absorbs it as reality. And over time, repeated exposure to these fictional realities creates expectations, beliefs, and behaviors that don't align with the real world. Your child starts to expect that problems should be solved instantly, that consequences aren't real, that emotions should be loud and exaggerated, and that life should move at the pace of a cartoon, which is about 10 times faster than real human interaction. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but my child watches educational cartoons. They're learning numbers, letters, animals. How can that be bad? And you're right that some content is designed with education in mind. But even educational cartoons come with costs when watched by children under 5. Because it's not just about what the content is teaching. It's about how the content is delivered. The speed, the stimulation, the lack of real human interaction, the passive consumption. All of these affect the developing brain in ways that no amount of educational value can offset. So before we go any further, if this is already shifting how you think about screen time, if you're realizing that maybe the shows you thought were harmless need a second look, do me a favor. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what your child watches most, and subscribe to the Parenting Blueprint. We have a membership with 2 exclusive levels that give you deep dives into topics like this, early access to videos, and a community of parents committed to raising kids with intention. If you want the tools to navigate this screen-filled world wisely, check out that membership below. Now let's continue. Let's talk about how cartoons specifically shape speech, behavior, and emotional expectations in young children. Because the effects are not abstract, they're observable, measurable, and happening in homes everywhere. First, speech. Young children learn language primarily through interaction with real people. They learn the rhythm of conversation, the back and forth of communication, the nuances of tone, pauses, and facial expressions. But when a child spends significant time watching cartoons, they're being exposed to artificial speech patterns. Characters talk faster than humans naturally speak. They use exaggerated intonation. There's no natural pause for response. And critically, there's no serve and return. The child is not part of the conversation. They're just receiving. Research shows that children who watch more screen media in early childhood tend to have smaller vocabularies and delayed language development compared to children who engage in more interactive, real-world communication. This isn't because the content is teaching them the wrong words. It's because passive screen time doesn't build the neural pathways that conversation does. When you talk with your child, when you wait for them to respond, when you adjust your language based on their understanding, you're doing something the screen can never do. You're co-creating language in real time. The screen just broadcasts, and a broadcasting model of language doesn't build strong communicators. Second, behavior. Cartoons, by design, are high stimulation, fast-paced, and often feature exaggerated physical behaviors. Characters run, jump, feel, crash, and bounce back instantly. Conflicts are resolved through physical action, magic, or humor. Consequences are minimal or non-existent, and this creates a behavioral template in your child's mind. They begin to imitate what they see, because imitation is how young brains learn. If they watch characters solving problems with aggression, even cartoon aggression, they're more likely to use physical behavior when frustrated. If they see characters getting what they want by being loud, demanding, or silly, they're more likely to try those strategies. And before you think, but my child knows the difference between cartoons and real life, remember, they don't. Not at this age. The part of the brain that helps with that discernment isn't developed yet. So when they watch a character throw a tantrum and immediately get what they want, their brain files that under strategies that work. When they see a character ignore rules and face no real consequences, their brain learns rules are optional. You might say, that's just a cartoon. But to them, it's a model of how people behave, and they will test that model in real life. Third, emotional expectations. Cartoons present emotions in extreme, exaggerated forms. Characters go from happy to devastated in seconds. They scream, they cry dramatically, they celebrate wildly. And while this makes for entertaining television, it teaches children that emotions should be big, loud, and immediate. It doesn't teach them how to sit with uncomfortable feelings, how to regulate when upset, or how to express emotions in measured, appropriate ways. Instead, it normalizes emotional extremes. Children who consume a lot of cartoon media often struggle with emotional regulation because their reference point for feelings is cartoons, not real life. Real life requires nuance. It requires the ability to feel disappointed without collapsing, to feel frustrated without exploding, to feel excited without bouncing off the walls. But cartoons don't model that. They model the opposite. And so the child's emotional vocabulary becomes limited to the extreme expressions they've seen on screen. They don't learn the middle ground, the subtlety, the self-control, and that becomes a problem in school, in relationships, in their ability to navigate the real world. Now let's talk about the fictional reality that cartoons create, because this is where the long-term impact becomes really clear. When a child watches hours of cartoons during the years their brain is forming its foundational understanding of the world, they begin to build expectations that don't match reality. They expect instant gratification because problems are solved in 7 minutes. They expect life to be entertaining because the screen never requires them to generate their own fun. They expect that people will be funny, colorful, exaggerated, like the characters they watch. And when real life, with its slower pace, its mundane moments, its lack of constant stimulation, doesn't match those expectations, the child becomes frustrated, bored, or disconnected. This is why so many parents notice that after their child watches cartoons, they seem more irritable, more demanding, less able to engage in quiet play. It's not that the child is being difficult, it's that their nervous system has been revved up to expect a level of stimulation that real life can't provide. And now, they're stuck in that heightened state with no outlet. This is overstimulation, and it's one of the most common yet least recognized consequences of early cartoon exposure. So how do you know if your child is being negatively affected by the cartoons they're watching? Here are the signs to watch for. First, difficulty transitioning away from screens. If your child melts down, becomes aggressive, or can't calm down after screen time ends, that's a red flag. It means their nervous system is overstimulated and they're struggling to regulate. Second, decreased interest in real-world play. If your child seems bored with toys, books, or outdoor play but lights up only for screens, their brain has become dependent on external stimulation. They've lost the ability to generate their own engagement. Third, imitation of cartoon behaviors. If your child is copying aggressive moves, using cartoon voices, or acting out scenarios from shows in ways that feel disconnected from reality, they're not just playing. They're replaying what they've absorbed, and if that content is fictional, exaggerated, or inappropriate, it's shaping their understanding of acceptable behavior. Fourth, speech delays or repetitive language. If your child is repeating catchphrases from shows, but struggling to use functional language to express needs, ask questions, or engage in conversation, that's a sign that screen language is replacing real language development. Fifth, emotional dysregulation. If your child has big, disproportionate emotional reactions, struggles to calm down, or seems emotionally reactive in ways that feel extreme for the situation, consider how much of their emotional modeling is coming from cartoons versus real human interaction. And sixth, difficulty with attention and focus. If your child can't sit through a meal, a book, or a simple activity without needing constant stimulation or entertainment, their attention system has been trained on the rapid scene changes and high stimulation of screens. Their brain now expects that pace, and anything slower feels unbearable. If you're recognizing any of these signs, don't panic. The brain is incredibly adaptable, especially at this age. Changes you make now will have profound effects. So let's talk about what your child should watch instead of cartoons. Because the answer is not to eliminate screens entirely, though reducing them significantly is ideal. The answer is to be strategic about what fills that screen time when it does happen. First, nature documentaries made for young audiences. Programs that show real animals in real environments moving at real speed. No talking animals, no exaggerated sounds, just the natural world as it actually is. This teaches your child what's real. It builds curiosity without overstimulation. It exposes them to beauty, patience, and the slow unfolding of life. Programs like Our Planet excerpts, age-appropriate animal content, or simple nature clips can be calming, educational, and grounding. Second, slow-paced educational content with real humans, not animated hosts, real people doing real things. Shows where adults demonstrate activities like cooking, building, exploring, or creating art at a natural pace. This models real human interaction, real speech patterns, and real problem solving. It shows your child what people actually do, not what cartoon characters pretend to do. Programs where someone is calmly explaining something, showing how things work, or engaging with the real world teach your child that learning doesn't require flashing lights and constant noise. Third, musical content with real instruments and real voices. not synthetic cartoon music, real acoustic instruments, real singing, real rhythm. Music is incredibly beneficial for brain development, but it needs to be authentic. Let your child see a guitar being played, a drum being hit, a voice singing without autotune. This builds auditory processing, emotional connection to sound, and appreciation for real artistic expression. Fourth, simple, animated stories that move slowly and focus on relationships, not action. If you're going to include animation, choose content that is slow, gentle, and emotionally rich. Stories that explore feelings, friendships, kindness, and real-life situations without superpowers or magic solutions. Content that mirrors real life, even in animated form, is far less disruptive to a young child's developing understanding of the world. And fifth, the best option of all, no screen content at all. Replace screen time with real experiences. Nature walks, playing with water, sand, or dirt, listening to you read, helping you cook, drawing, building. These experiences build the brain in ways no screen ever can. They require the child to be active, to think, to create, to engage. And that active engagement is what wires the brain for focus, creativity, problem solving, and emotional health. Now let's talk about how to make this transition without guilt, shame, or feeling like you have to be extreme. Because I know some of you are thinking, I've been letting my child watch cartoons every day. Does that mean I've damaged them? No, it doesn't. The brain is resilient, and awareness is the first step toward change. You didn't know what you didn't know. Now you do. And now you can make different choices moving forward. Start by reducing screen time gradually. Don't go cold turkey unless you're prepared for significant pushback. Instead, cut back by 15 minutes a day. Replace that time with something engaging. A walk outside, a puzzle, playing with Play-Doh, your presence. The goal is not to punish your child by taking away something they enjoy. The goal is to gently shift their brain toward healthier inputs. And that takes time. Second, be intentional about what stays. If your child is going to watch something, choose it carefully. Preview it yourself. Ask, is this showing real life or fantasy? Is the pace calm or chaotic? Are the emotions realistic or exaggerated? Are the characters solving problems in ways I want my child to imitate? If the answer to most of those questions is concerning, find something better. There is content out there that respects a young child's developmental needs. You just have to look for it. Third, watch with your child when possible. Co-viewing transforms passive consumption into interactive learning. You can pause and explain. You can ask questions. You can point out what's real and what's not, even though they won't fully grasp it yet. Your voice, your presence, your interpretation becomes part of the experience. And that makes it less about the screen and more about the relationship. You're mediating the content, which reduces its power to shape your child's brain unchecked. Fourth, create screen-free zones and times. No screens during meals, no screens in bedrooms, no screens in the first hour after waking or the last hour before bed. These boundaries protect the times when connection, routine, and calm are most important. They also send a message that screens are not the center of life. They're a tool used occasionally, not a constant companion. Fifth, model the behavior you want to see. If you're on your phone constantly, your child learns that screens are what adults do. If you choose books, conversations, outdoor time, and creative activities, your child learns that those are what life is about. You can't ask your child to disconnect if you're not willing to do the same. Your behavior is their blueprint. And finally, trust that less is more. You might worry that your child will fall behind if they're not watching educational content. But the research is clear. Real-world interaction, play, and exploration build stronger brains than any screen content ever could. Your child will not miss out by watching less. They will gain more focus, more creativity, more language, more emotional regulation, more connection to you and to the real world. That is not deprivation. That is protection. So here's what I need you to do. Starting today, take an honest look at what your child is watching. Write it down. How much time? What content? Then ask yourself, is this building the brain I want my child to have? Is this teaching them about the real world or a fictional one? And then make one change. Just one. Maybe it's cutting screen time by 15 minutes. Maybe it's swapping one cartoon for a nature video. Maybe it's committing to co-viewing. Whatever it is, start there. Small, consistent changes create massive shifts over time. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. Hit that like button if this changed your perspective. Drop a comment and tell me what your child watches most and what you're going to change, Banti. Subscribe to the Parenting Blueprint because we're here to give you the tools, the science, and the support to raise kids who thrive in the real world, not just on screens. And share this video with another parent who needs this message. Because this information is too important to keep to yourself. Remember, you're not raising a child for the screen. You're raising a child for life, a life that requires focus, patience, emotional intelligence, and the ability to engage with reality as it actually is. The choices you make now, in these first 5 years, will echo for decades. Choose wisely. Your child's brain is counting on you.